Alright, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over the video on how a guitar pick proves God's existence. This video is very interesting, and he says it has a 99% conversion rate. And he says if you don't understand it by the end of the video, it's because you just don't understand philosophy. So let's go through his entire video, all 15 minutes, all the premises, all the context. I'm not going to cherry pick each part and clip certain parts of the video. We're going to watch the whole thing and go through the whole thing. This is a quick little pre-consensus. There are 3 gaps in his argument, and I'm going to go through and point them out when we come across them. But just so you can know beforehand, be on the lookout. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be able to spot all 3 of these on your own without needing somebody ever to be able to explain it to you. So in the future, when a theist tries to run these arguments, you're prepared. Also, really quick, I do just want to say I respect Jesus and whatnot. I think he is one of the best representations of theism and, the belief in God. But I do think he gets a lot of things conflated and misconstrued. So we're just going to go over it. And yeah, I've already said that. Let's just get into it. Editor Ben here. I just want to say this is a long video. The original video by him was like 15 minutes. I just went really in depth, and I feel like if you want to know why this argument is terrible, I was about to say trash and I wanted to say terrible, so I said terrible. Ignore it. Please watch the whole video and you'll understand exactly why this argument fails, and it's incoherent, and it has 4 gaps. I said 3, but it actually has 4. So yeah.
I have had a lot of arguments with atheists in my life, and there is one argument that I use that really sticks out as the best. One that 99% of the time convinces somebody that God exists. I've seen hundreds of people in my personal life use this argument and then become theistic, believe in a God. I've seen thousands of DMs come into my inbox of people saying that this argument convinced them that God exists.
Now, I just want to quickly say, notice how we haven't gotten to any argument yet. No substance. He's just trying to butter you up and tell you, oh, this argument's really good. Oh, this argument, 99% conversion rate. Actually, 1,000 people DM me saying this argument is super good. This does nothing, and it doesn't matter. None of these things matter. If your argument is correct, this doesn't matter. You shouldn't have to butter somebody up or do this sort of priming, I think is what it's called. Just lay it out for us. Let us hear that, and that's really all we should have to hear.
So it really is a good one. It does work. And if I were to advise anyone on evangelization, this is the argument that I would recommend they use. Now, this is an argument that I made up, you could say. It's not one that I read specifically in a book somewhere, but it's also not like I'm some theological or philosophical genius. I just used what I knew from Thomism and certain Aristotelian categories, and I kind of tested the waters, saw what worked with atheists and what didn't, and I came to the conclusion that this is the best way to frame the existence of God.
Alright, I don't know about you guys, but that is an insanely big burden. The best argument to prove God's existence. Something along those lines. So, if this argument does not make me a theist, Jesus and whatnot, I'm going to assume your argument is incoherent. But if I'm a theist by the end of this video, so be it. Let's get into it.
Now, before I fully explain this argument, there are a few things that you're going to need to understand to make this really the best argument ever, okay? And you're going to need to explain these things to the person you're debating against as well. And the main thing that you need to understand before getting into this argument is that everything in the universe is some mixture of actuality and potency. Now, that sounds kind of complicated, but don't worry, I'm going to explain this so that even like a middle schooler can understand. I'm going to break it down pretty easily. So if there's words that sound like you don't understand them, don't worry, I will explain them.
Really quick, I want to say I switched the invert because I couldn't stand looking at myself inverted. I think I already look terrible, so seeing myself like that just did not help. And I also want to give Jesus and whatnot props and whatnot, because I think he explains things very well, and he can I don't want to say dumb things down as in to like invalidate someone hearing them, but just like to make things easier to comprehend. He does a good job on that. But I wouldn't say I agree with what he's saying, so let me give my critique now. I feel like saying everything is just actuality and potency isn't this neutral fact about the world. He's just delivering, I think it's hylomorphism, Aristotle's description of the universe. It's not a description of the universe, he's describing Aristotle's description of the universe. It's a contested metaphysical framework amongst other several ones, and I wouldn't say I submit or partake to this one, but he's asserting it like it's just true. You know, he's not presenting it like there are other competing pieces of evidence for explaining these metaphysical things. That is my first critique. So yeah, just keep this in mind as the video continues. This isn't just asserted, it's never argued for, and why it's actually the reason, I guess.
So the first thing that we said, right, is that everything in the universe is some mixture of actuality and potency. Let's take this guitar pick, for example. The actuality is what it is. Actuality is what a thing is. So this guitar pick has the actuality. It's plastic, it's triangular, it's red, white, blue, and black. It's pretty simple. It's what a thing is. That doesn't take too much understanding.
This part makes sense, and it's actually faulty to even want to have to push back on this. Actuality just means what's real about a thing right now. It's not controversial. I think me and him agree. So this concession cost him really nothing yet, because the argument's just being built up, but you'll see as we go on why this matters.
Now, the potency of a thing or the potential of a thing are the logical conclusions of what it could be, but it is not. So, for example, this guitar pick could be bright green, but it's not. That's the potency. It could be. It has the potential to be. That is the potency. Okay. Now remember, it's only logical things that fall under the category of potency. Now, it would be completely illogical, right, for this to be a square and a circle at the same time. So this guitar pick does not have the potency to be a square and a circle at the same time, because that's not logical. So illogical things do not fall under potency.
This is also just perfectly fine. But I do want to point out we need to hold on this word logical. Right now we're saying potency just means logical possibility. It's purely conceptual. It says nothing about causation yet. But we need to watch how this word is going to do a completely different job once we start talking about the universe. So that's why I said let's keep this in mind on what he's conceding so we can track and make sure it follows.
Everything in the universe is a mixture of actuality and potency. Now that you understand those, that claim starts to make a little bit more sense. So these pliers, for example, they are a mixture of actuality and potency, right? We have right here pliers. They can grip things. They can cut things. They are actually pliers. They exist in what you're seeing right now. That's the actuality of these pliers, just what you're seeing, how they exist, what they are. Now, there's also potency in these pliers. They could be 3 times bigger. They could be bright orange. They could be a number of things. That's the potency, okay? The way that it could be that it is not. Now, remember, it's only logical things that fall under potency. And you can do this with anything that exists. We could use this empty glass right here. This glass is in actuality, it's made of glass. It has these cool designs on it, but it could be filled to the brim with water. It could be purple. It could be a number of things, okay? Actuality and potency.
I feel like right now he's really just repeating himself. He's not really saying anything that is in dispute, really. Sorry, it's storming where I'm at right now. But yeah, and none of this is really new information either. It's like he's trying to build this thoroughness around a claim that never needed it. It's obvious. We know these things. It's like this is just hypothetical. It could be 3 times bigger. It could be purple. It could be green. It could come from your mom's house. Sure.
Now that you understand actuality and potency, we can get into the real argument, why God exists. Why does God exist using what we just learned? And if you don't have a great understanding of actuality and potency yet, rewatch what I just said. Really make sure you understand, because the rest of this video is going to be tricky if you don't actually understand actuality and potency. But now,
really quick, I just want to say he's framing it right now as if you don't understand it. It's because it's a flaw on your part, not because there's a hole in the argument. But who knows? It could be both. So I think I have a really good grasp of understanding what actuality and potency are supposed to be. Therefore, if I don't understand this argument, I don't think it would have anything to do with me not understanding actuality and potency. It would probably have to be doing with you having holes in your argument or your argument being incoherent. Let's just establish that first.
Now that you do, now that you've gone back and watched it, now that you fully understand it, we can make an argument for the existence of God. Premise one, the first thing that you need to agree on to exist, that God to agree that God exists, is that everything that has parts has potency. Okay, so anything that's made up of parts has potency. And that sounds like just a baseless claim, but when we really think about it, it makes sense. We can use this rosary, for example. Okay, the rosary is made up of a rope and a bunch of different beads on it, right? Those are parts of the rosary. And since it has parts, it has potency because they could be arranged in any other way.
I will only grant premise one if it's laid out exactly how you just stated it. And that's the only way I think anyone could accept this premise one. A rosary's beads could sit in a different arrangement. That is logically possible, but then I feel like we need to discuss which kind of potency this is going to be. This is just arrangement potency, which means it's just purely spatial and logical. That's it. That's all we're getting from this argument of potency. That is not the same thing as saying, oh, this fails to exist or this needs a cause to be existing. Those things are potency in his vocabulary. Or like, so I feel like he switches between these two things. Like, this is potency as a grand scheme is not this. He's identifying a part of it, which, as I said, arrangement potency. It's not actually the reason why things are the way they are, or why they would have to be explained, why they exist, or why they would need a cause to exist. He switches through this throughout the video unexplained and doesn't address it. So I'm pointing this out right now for you to see.
Since there are parts, we can say that they can be arranged any other way. That is a logical possibility for a different way that they could be. Okay, so for example, this crucifix could be not here, but it could be all the way up here. That is a possible way that it is not. Okay, so that is a potency. That is potency within this object. And anything that has parts, anything that's made up of parts has that potency. So we could even take something really simple like this guitar pick. It's made up of a bunch of different atoms, of a bunch of different molecules, right? That gives it potency, right? Because we can arrange those molecules in a bunch of different ways. These black checkers could be over here, and the white ones could be all the way over here. That is a logical possibility. So anything with parts has potency because there is a logical way in which it could be other than it is. Make sure that you understand that because that's premise one. And once you present that, once you get people to agree with you on that, because it's true, it's just a true statement.
I have to stop you again right here because you're just doing the same thing you were doing like 2-3 minutes ago. Hold on, pause. So I'm just going to clarify this one more time so it's on the record as said and I delivered it. Arrangement potency is real. Premise one is affirmed as it's stated. There's no need to push back on this yet, but there's also no reason to just keep on repeating the same thing and giving us no new information. You'll see why this is important.
We can now say anything with potency requires an outside cause to explain why it is the way that it is. I'm going to say that one more time. Anything with potency requires an outside cause to explain why it is the way that it is. So, like we said, this guitar pick has potency, right? It's made up of parts, therefore it has potency. So there has to be an outside explanation.
So this is one of his, I wouldn't say blunders, but one of his first mistakes, and let's just go over it. This is what his whole argument rests on. Anything with potency requires an outside cause to explain why the way it is. This is just PSR, principle of sufficient reason. And again, this is just stated with no defense. Its denial is not a contradiction, and it is not self-evident itself. I mean, David Hume specifically argued that causal connection is something that we earn through experience. And I guess learn through experience. It's not something that logic is just handing to you, is the point. And as I said, he presented this the same way he presented actuality and potency, without explaining why it actually exists. He's just saying what it is. So again, right now, saying it plainly is not the same as proving it.
That explains why it is the way that it is. Why are the black squares in a certain spot and why are the white squares in a certain spot? Well, that's because the manufacturer decided that it would be that way. Why does it say fender on the front? Why are those parts in that specific way? Well, because an outside cause, the manufacturer decided that it would be in that spot. Okay, that's a pretty straightforward one. Anything that has potency requires an outside cause.
I mean, this is just obviously true of any manufactured object. Like, again, we're not getting any new information right now. Artifacts have makers. This is obvious. So, but let's remember the word manufacturer and how he's using it right now, and how he made sense of what it means in this example versus how he's about to say it makes sense in his future examples. Because in a couple minutes, he's going to explain how this manufacturer is then this maker for the universe, the entire universe. And nothing should have led him to get to this conclusion, I guess, is the point.
So now let's take those two premises, right? That anything with parts has potency and that anything with potency requires an outside cause. We can then say anything that is made up of parts requires an outside cause, right? Because if it has parts, it has potency. And if it has potency, it requires an outside cause. So since this guitar pick has parts, it therefore has potency and therefore requires an outside cause. This leads us to our third premise.
Really quick, I just want to imply everything in the universe shows that it was made by something. This whole, watchmaker design kind of thing, oh, we see these things, it has to be, who's the creator? I would say it's not someone, it's something. Someone can be something, but I don't think something has to be someone, and this is the confusion, We see planets get formed by something. We see a phone get formed by something. One is a human and a creator, I guess, a worker. The other one is just the universe and causal mechanisms and gravity. But these are still being created by something, just not someone. And again, maybe even right there I'm blundering. The word create is probably the wrong word. Maybe caused. It was caused by something. I think I would feel more comfortable using that word.
Okay. Anything that requires an outside cause is contingent upon something else. And that's very, very simple. Contingency, you could say dependence. It receives its existence from something else. So since this relies on an outside cause, we could say that it is therefore contingent. Okay. It requires an outside cause. It's contingent. It relies on something else for its existence. So this guitar pick, right? It relies on the manufacturer to be the way it is, and therefore it is contingent upon something, in this case, the manufacturer, for its existence. That's very simple. Let's put those all together, okay? Parts means potency. Potency means outside cause. Outside cause means contingency.
I feel like you're kind of confused right now. I don't know your name, but this isn't a new premise. Like this is I think he said this is his third. This leads to the third premise, but this isn't a new premise. This is just premise 2 relabeled. Requiring an outside cause and contingent are just the same thing with 2 different labels, I feel like. So dressing up a 2-step move as a 3-step proof makes it seem more convincing. But again, this whole video, we're not really getting new information a lot of the time. It just makes it feel more rigorous. But to be fair with him, and I do want to give him his props, everything up until this point has been fine as long as we're only talking about this guitar pick right now, or as I said earlier, a manufactured object. These things make sense. It's like, duh.
Now that you understand that, we're going to get into where do we get God, right? Like where does God come into this picture? Okay. Imagine the entire material universe. That's a big claim. The entire thing. Imagine it real quick. Imagine the entire material universe. What do you notice about it? It's made up of parts, right? It's made up of planets, of stars, of galaxies, of atoms, of many different things. It's made up of these things. There's parts that make up the universe. And what does that mean? Okay. What do those parts imply? The parts imply that there is now potency. The universe as a whole has potency.
Yep, and this is where, unfortunately, you blunder and you mess up and you ruin everything you just built. I'm sorry. This was a great video for naturalism up until this point, and this proves why he's a theist and why this is an unnecessary ontological jump. Oh, sorry. I keep on forgetting to hit pause. As we were saying earlier, a guitar pick has parts. That means it has arrangement, potency. All these things are fine. But now he's jumping to the universe. But this does not mean if you were to take the universe as a single totality, you're getting the same property as we have with the guitar pick. It's just not following. This is a composition fallacy. A fallacy of composition. It's like saying, hey, I have a brick. This is a bag of chips. I have a brick and it weighs 5 pounds. Now, if I build a wall of bricks, how much is the wall gonna weigh? You're gonna say 5 pounds. That is then a composition fallacy. That's kind of what he's making right now. Well, not kind of. That is what he's making right now. Not the analogy, kind of, but he is making a composition fallacy. And what's crazy is that this objection was raised to Aquinas almost a century ago. So let's go over it right now. A property true of every part does not automatically transfer to the whole. A part is not the whole. And then he went to say, and I quote, an infinite chain where each member is fully explained by the one before it can leave nothing further to explain about the chain as a totality. So what he's saying is that Jesus and whatnot needs this inference, but he never argued for it. Again, he is just asserting these things. He's not arguing for them. He's just moving too fast that you don't realize the whole is being treated just like an object like the other parts. But this is just where he's wrong. And this is where you need to be able to catch this on your own as this kind of like gotcha, maybe not a gotcha, but just this move that theists use to compel their argument. But it's wrong.
The potency then means what? That there is an outside cause that explains why it is the way that it is. And finally, the outside cause means that it is contingent. It's contingent upon something else. The universe as a whole, the material universe, relies on something outside of itself for its existence.
Yeah, so I can just really no longer respect you anymore because this is just so incoherent. I don't know how you could make this deduction. Like, I'm confused. I would really just argue every example we see of contingency inside the universe is just a reorganization of matter and energy already inside the universe. So we've never seen an example of causation that isn't inside the universe. No example of contingency, potency, or anything. Arrangement, potency outside it doesn't exist. We don't know anything about it. There's no examples. So to then assume the universe then needs to have a cause or needs to be caused, it's incoherent, and I just don't agree with it. And I don't think any scientist or atheist would agree with it. It's really just an unearned inference, and the rest of the video falls apart from here, but let's just continue for the sake of having fun and it being my first reaction video.
Okay. What is that thing? What could that thing be? And remember, I have not said the word God yet as a proof. I have not said that this proves God. So a lot of people will stop there. They'll say, oh, see, outside cause, there's something outside of the universe that must be God. Not yet. Okay.
I mean, it's just kind of funny how he's able to point out like, hey, yeah, no, we can't earn that leap yet. You know, I can't really get there yet, but you can get to the conclusion that the universe needs a cause, or the universe needs to be caused. I'm not saying the universe can't be caused or it wasn't caused. I'm saying it's illogical to assume that based on all of our reasoning and current evidence, I guess. I don't need to explain this further.
That doesn't prove to anyone that God exists. Now we need to talk about the nature of this thing that caused the universe, that is the cause of the universe, right? Because most people will say, yeah, the universe had to come from somewhere. People are typically smart enough to be able to say that. But where did the universe come from? Okay. So if this thing, we'll call this the unknown being, okay? It's outside of the universe. That's all we know about it right now. It's outside of the material universe, and it caused everything.
I mean, yes, I agree this question of where the universe came from is real, and it's kind of rational to assume, hey, the universe had to come from somewhere. But I'm then not saying it is coherent to assert it came from somewhere, which is what he's trying to do right now. An unknown being is not doing any explanatory work yet. It's just naming the result of the fallacy he gave. I guess we'll see what he's going to try to deliver, but we're going to watch it fail. So yeah, just remember he's made zero progress since he shot himself in his foot and made that blunder.
The all of everything is contingent upon this one thing. Well, what does that mean? It must be eternal. this unknown being, it must be eternal. Because if everything else came from this thing, then it must come before time, right? Because time itself is a thing that came from the unknown being. So this unknown being must come from before time. Okay? So this is not God of the gaps, don't worry.
Yeah, I would say it's God of bullshit. It's the God of fallacies. That's what I'm getting from this right now. Let me pause it. There's two different things that just went on right here, and him assuming my chair is so squeaky. There's two different things that just went on right here, with his whole assumption that it has to be eternal, cause time, blah blah blah. Let's talk about it. I can agree this uncaused cause, this uncaused cause thing, first term, it plausibly does have to be eternal. Sure. But him then saying this is not God of the gaps is preempting a comeback before I can even make it. A being sitting outside the causal series of its own timeline has to be eternal. Sure. If Harry Potter was real, he'd need his wand to know how to do spells. Sure. God of the gaps isn't about explaining the word unknown. It's about inserting an unexplainable explainer. It's about doing nothing. Like inserting an unexplained explainer exactly where the explanation runs out just is like, it makes no sense. I think my little sister could follow that. But the thing is that regardless of the label he's giving, whether or not if it's coherent, that is what's happening right now. And it is wrong.
This unknown being must be eternal. That's all we know right now. Unknown being is eternal. Now, anything that's eternal must be what's called actus purus, or pure actuality. This unknown being, okay, it's outside of the universe and it has no potency.
All right, here comes the special pleading. Get ready. This universe has parts, so it needed an explanation. But this unknown being supposedly doesn't have parts, so it doesn't need an explanation. Why does this rule stop applying exactly where it would get inconvenient for you? Why are you just assuming this being has no parts? You're not actually ever arguing for it. He's just asserting it because he needs it to be true for the rest of his argument to work.
It's pure actuality. So, for example, like we said earlier, everything is made up of some mixture of actuality and potency. Okay, some percentage, we could say. We could arbitrarily say that this guitar pick is 50% actuality and 50% potency. It's 50% the way it is and 50% some other thing, some other way that it's not. Now, we can also say that some things are 100% potency and 0% actuality. So, a unicorn, right, with magical powers, that's 100% potency. It's 100% imaginary because it's not any way. It doesn't actually exist.
I can concede to all this being fine. It's just like painting some illustration. There's literally nothing to dispute here, but watch what he's about to do with this, like, and what he's about to build up and put his unknown being on top. Let me explain. Or I guess actually just watch and then I will explain. But be careful, be aware. He's building this up so he can put his unknown being on top of this. You watch now.
100% imagination, okay? So it's fully potent. It's fully potential. No actuality. 100% potency. But what about the other end of the spectrum? Something that is 100% actuality. There's no potency. There is no logical way in which it could be any other way. Anything that is eternal must be 100% actuality. Because remember, if something has any potency, it requires something else to explain why it is the way that it is. But if something's eternal, there's nothing that came before it. Nothing can change it. Nothing can cause it because it never began to exist. Therefore, this thing must be 100% actuality. Okay? Now, what does that mean? What does that mean for us? Well, there's no potency. There's no imperfection. There's no other way that it could be, which means it is the greatest of all things. It is fully maximal in all things, right? Because let's say this unknown being that is eternal, it has 50% of the power that it could have. Well, hold on a second. That would be potency, right? Because it could have more power. Logically, it could have more power.
No potency does not automatically mean maximally good in every single quality. He's assuming more actuality means more of every good property with it, but that doesn't follow. Again, he just asserts these things. He does not argue them. Like, I don't think this is just the natural next step. I don't think we can just nod our heads and agree with these things. I could have responded earlier in one of the things he was listing, but I'm getting tired and this video is running long, so I'm only going to start attacking his main parts. I feel like I've gone over his 3 blunders, his mistakes, relatively swell, but we're going to continue forward, but I'm getting bored.
It's lacking power. So then it's not 100% actuality. So since this thing is 100% actuality, it therefore needs to be maximal in everything. It needs to have the most power. It needs to have the most knowledge. It needs to have, it needs to be fully eternal. It needs to be the most good. It needs to be the most loving.
This is probably the biggest blunder of his whole entire argument. And I literally don't see how 99% of people get converted from this. Like, you must be attacking straight low tiers. Like, this really, like, I'm not even trying to be rude. This just does not follow. This is not a coherent argument whatsoever. No potency does not entail having mind or knowledge or love. These things, again, do not follow. The eternal, timeless, causally baseless being could just as easily be an inert structural fact like Spinoza, a brute physical necessity with no inner life at all. He needed to throw in a mind at the end of his argument for everything to work, because he's a Christian or a Catholic, whatever, and it's the whole point of having to prove this idea of a God and then connecting that idea of a God to his idea, or I guess my idea of God. It has to be all this, blah blah blah. It's just blunder, blunder, blunder. A mind is only here because he wrote it in. None of the premises conclude this whatsoever.
Right? The most everything. And now you might say, what, wouldn't that mean it needs to be the most hateful too? No, not necessarily. Because evil, right? Evil is not a tangible thing. Evil is a lack of good. So actually, if this unknown being had any evil, that would be potency. So it's illogical for this being to have any evil or any hatred in it.
Boy, oh boy, for one to be able to recognize what's illogical, but not recognize his own argument is illogical, is kind of ironic and a bit hypocritical. I don't know. This is the whole privation theory of evil argument. It's stated in like a short, concise bit, I guess. And again, he's doing it as if it's obviously true. Like, hey guys, actually no, just like this, because yeah, then it's not gonna work. So yeah, but close one, you almost got me. You're not stating why this is true. You're just asserting it. You're never arguing for jack shit. So this again does not follow from his premises. It is not a rational conclusion you can make. It is just thrown in here because he needs it to be true for his argument to have the 99% conversion rate. I'm maybe starting to see why people think it's so good, because it's full of bullshit. If I were to create the same argument for atheism, atheism would take over the world.
In the way that we're using hatred right now. So let's take a step back and look at what we've had here. There is an unknown being that is outside of the universe, that the entire universe relies on. It is eternal. It is maximally good, maximally powerful, maximally knowledgeable, maximally loving. What are we describing here? That thing is God. You don't have to attribute it to any religion. Okay? We don't have to say that's the Christian one or the Muslim one or the Jewish one or the Hindu one, or Hindu ones, I guess. But we can all agree that what we're describing right now is a God. It's infinite, it's eternal, it's all loving. It created everything. That's what a God is. That is classical theism. That is a God.
So it's actually kind of funny he brings up classical theism, because I just did my first YouTube video on debunking classical theism. It's kind of ironic. But yeah, again, he's going over the argument like it made sense, like we should track and follow it. But again, I'm just not agreeing with anything, and I don't think you should too. So let's lay out his full argument on what it actually is. A fallacy of compositions turns the universe has parts into the universe needs a cause for these parts. An unargued exemption from that own rule proves that this cause then needs to be eternal. And then an unearned leap turns this eternal into actuality. It's getting long in the video, I'm sorry. And then this smuggled in theory of evil turns into the whole potency thing, into just being maximally good. Blunder, 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 blunder. So I guess it's really just 4 gaps. And I can't concede any of them. And I feel like even if I did, you would just get a necessary mind, you know? Like, you wouldn't then get Christianity. You wouldn't then get anything else you would argue for. I don't even think you could get classical theism, because I've gone over why classical theism is incoherent. Just gets you a bare necessary mind, sure. But again, that's if I concede everything, if I'm feeling generous, which I'm not, Jesus and whatnot. So I just, this is a really bad argument.
And so that's how you do it. That's how you explain it to someone. And if you explain that to a person who's not very well versed in metaphysics, 99% of the time, automatically, yes, they believe in a God after that.
This is bullshit. This is like, you are lying. I'm actually going to like getting upset now. You are fucking lying. Then all of our scientists would believe in God. Every single one. There would be no atheism. None. But what the argument you're giving is incoherent. Okay? This is a fuck-ass statistic from Timbuktu. No one should buy this shit.
Now, when you start to have an interlocutor who knows more about metaphysics, you will still win. Because what we just said, there was nothing, there were no fallacies in there.
I like to think this guy was a high tier.
It was airtight. I've ran through this argument quite a few times. It's absolutely airtight. Now, if you start debating like an atheist who's been studying theology and philosophy his entire life, he might be able to confuse you.
That's pretty crazy to assume that, hey, we can still confuse you, but we're still going to be wrong. Like Jesus and whatnot is just pulling out of his ass right now. But let's see.
With more big words. And that's why you need to be well-versed in theology and philosophy. But what we just did was prove definitively that a God exists. We didn't prove any religion. We didn't really prove that you can know this God, you can have a relationship with him, or that he died on a cross or anything.
And you also just didn't prove a God in general. Wah wah. If someone with real training is pushing back on you and you're told in advance it's because they're using big words and trying to confuse you, you should know what's going on here. This is just inoculation. He's preloading all the excuses to trying to make this argument the best. But it sucks. Like, I went into this video skimming through it thinking it was like, okay, this is fine, you know, Jesus and whatnot. Let's hear him. He's cool. I saw his debate with Nate FM. It was interesting. So I thought this guy was smart. Good, he knows his stuff. Clearly not. Like, and I just want to say right now, science never has to do this. Science doesn't have to lay out a paper and then say, hey, in advance, if they think these things, just know they're not thinking right. You know, you can maybe like try to preload some comebacks, but you can't fully unfalsify your position. There's going to be holes, and it's not because we're not understanding something. It's because you are wrong. It's because you are wrong. But science doesn't need to do this. Science lays things out. Science gives formulas. Science gives inductive, deductive, abductive arguments without needing to plan in the future for what someone is going to say. Because they don't need to. Because if it's right, you shouldn't have to do this, okay? If it's right, you shouldn't have to do this. I don't know why this is so hard. Gosh.
But we proved that God does exist. That there is a monotheistic God out there. I really want you guys to ponder on what was just said, to really think about it. If you have questions about anything in this video, ask them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer it. Because
I demand a response to this video then. I demand you to address the 4 gaps and 4 fallacies and whatever I identified in your argument, and how fallacious and how incoherent it is. So please, respond to me.
This is a very important topic, being able to evangelize atheists. So hopefully this helps. I know that was a lot. That was very wordy. So watch it a couple times. Make sure that you really understand it. And God bless, guys.
All right. So if he thought that 17 minutes of fucking bullshit was a lot, wait till you see this response. What are we at right now? I can't even see. I think this is like 40 minutes. This is what a true argument takes, because I'm correcting you on everything. I'm not just asserting things, unlike you. So quickly, let's go over the 4 gaps he gave us in his argument that is good and sound, and no fallacies, by the way. He committed no fallacies. Let's just go over the 4 gaps though. 1, a fallacy of composition. 2, an unargued exemption for his own conclusion. 3. An unearned leap to pure actuality. 4. A smuggled in theory of evil to get from no potency to God loves you. And I took his advice. I watched the video. I skimmed through it once beforehand. I watched it as I was responding to it, and now I just watched it again fully on my own to make sure I didn't miss anything and have to go back and add something. And it still is the same. Fallacious, however you say it. I don't care. You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that is it, guys. That is our first response video on YouTube. Give me a rate down in the comments. I hope Jesus and whatnot sees this. I hope my dog shuts up as well. And yeah, that's it.